The second time I ever met a human in person, we had just agreed to take a break from trying to kill each other. If the planet had a name, I doubt anybody on either side bothered to learn it. It was a dirtball at the tail tip of nowhere, just barely habitable by both Vanga and humans. The Kaga Trinity claimed it, but we didn't really need it other than as territory to give the Trinity a little more girth in the never-ending genital measuring pageant that is galactic politics. The humans were from the Ralto Hereditary Republic, and had no better reason than we did for claiming the place. Their ambassador even said, "We want it because you want it." So that's how I ended up in a boulder-strewn pass 100 kilometers from any Vanga-built structure, crouching to avoid incoming projectiles, trying to get a squad of Trion landing infantry into defensible positions. And watching one of the best soldiers I'd ever known slowly bleed to death in the dust. The pass was strategically important, according to some staff room hero back at HQ. It was the quickest ground path through the chain of rocky hills that split this region of the planet. Why that mattered in a place where everybody had suborbital transport capability and neither side held aerospace superiority, I don't know. But apparently the Queuing's first picture book of strategy they teach our staff officers out of says that you hold and fortify passes, so that's what we've been sent to do. Unfortunately, the Ralto humans must have had a copy of that book too. The humans ambushed us in the narrowest part of the pass, right at the spot we had intended to use as a choke point against them. We didn't spot them, because we had no recon other than a few flank pocket drones. This was a security action, not a real war, so not much actual air power had been deployed with us. And the drones didn't spot them because, well, humans are really good at not being spotted. We only realized they had beaten us to the objective when bullets started hitting. Since we were in semi-powered armor, we could take a few hits from the humans' Gauss rifles, and most of us weren't too far from cover. So even though just about all of us took some impacts, the armor held up well enough for us to get out of the kill zone. Except for Sean, Trooper First Class Chargon had been walking point when the ambush went off. He always walked point, volunteered for it every chance he got. Policy was to rotate your point walker every patrol, so as to spread the risk equally, but Charan was a soldier's soldier, the kind of person every he-cobbling daydreams about being when he grows up. He wasn't particularly big or tough. He didn't get too boisterous or aggressive or act like a stereotypical hard flank. He was quiet, competent, easygoing, and while he assured us that he was capable of feeling fear, you'd never know it if you watched him in action. When the enemy opened fire, Sean was the only one to immediately return it, while the rest of us were beating hooves back up the pass. Sean got his pulse rifle going and started laying bursts into the human positions as he backed away, single-handedly covering our withdrawal and his own. It was just about the bravest damn thing I'd ever seen. And then his luck ran out. He'd made it about halfway out of the kill zone when a Gauss round punched through the thinner armor around one of his back knees, nearly severing his leg. The cry he let out when he got hit, I still hear it sometimes when I'm not quite asleep. It wasn't the kind of thing you expected to hear from a soldier like Charan, a mix of the pain and surprise of a grown Vanga and the shocked distress of a badly hurt Queuing. He was still holding the trigger down though, still spraying blast pulses into the hillside where the humans were dug in. His armor had constricted above the impact, trying to tourniquet off the leg before he bled out, but blood was still drizzling out as he got up and tried to limp on 3 legs back to us. Then another burst caught him, tore his pulse gun out of his hands, and ripped apart his upper right arm just below the shoulder. Chargon went back down. This time he stayed there. I was getting the rest of the squad into skirmish order and trying to figure out how to drive the humans out of the position they had taken. Our medic and another trooper started to rush out and grab Shkan, but the humans were pouring too much fire into the narrows. The guys were game to try anyway, but I ordered them back. We just ended up with 3 casualties in the hot zone instead of 1, and be down our medic, unless we could drive off or suppress those damned human riflemen first. I put up some drones to get a better picture, but it didn't look good. The human position was only assailable from their left flank, but that would mean going up a steep slope, across open ground, exposed to their fire the whole way. It was a card flip which one would be bloodier for us going up that slope, or just charging through the pass at speed and trying to get past them. Both options sucked. Doctrine called for either an airstrike or long-range artillery support before assaulting a position like that, but we didn't have either one of those. Like I said, this was considered a mere security action, so the Trinity Defense Committee was fighting it on the cheap. Our support was only available for brigade-level engagements. I could count the number of artillery pieces we had on World on 4 hands, and have a thumb or 2 left over. No medevac lifters either, of course. The defense committee must have done the math and decided infantry blood was cheaper than heavy equipment. The bastards. While I was doing all this, Chargon was rolling back and forth in the dirt, moaning and keening like a lost soul. Our armor had auto-injectors that would dose us with an anesthetic if we were hit, but it could only do so much when a trooper had one leg hanging by strings of meat and his bicep turned into a butcher shop reject. His armor's tourniquet function was trying its best, but all it could do was prolong his pain. "We can't just leave Shan," one of my troopers yelled at me. "We can't get to him yet," either I yelled right back. "Shut up and let me think maybe if I split the unit, half up the slope and half into the pass." No, they'd just pin us down in 2 places instead of 1. Indirect plasma grenade fire, walked in by using the drones, coupled with a feint up slope that was a step in the right direction. Pain and blood loss were making Chargon delirious. He was calling for his mother, sobbing, "Mommy, Mommy, come get me. I'm sorry, Mommy. I just want to go home. They don't tell you about stuff like that in video games and 3V action shows. They never talk about how agony and the nearness of death can turn a soldier back into the queuing that they had been not that long ago. How a commander listens to it with his blood turned to ice because the voice sounds so young, not that different from his own queuings at home. Our armor had auto-injectors that would dose us with an anesthetic if we were hit, but it could only do so much when a trooper had one leg hanging by strings of meat and his bicep turned into a butcher shop reject. His armor's tourniquet function was trying its best, but all it could do was prolong his pain. "We can't just leave Shan," one of my troopers yelled at me. "We can't get to him yet," either I yelled right back. "Shut up and let me think maybe if I split the unit, half up the slope and half into the pass." No, they'd just pin us down in 2 places instead of 1. Indirect plasma grenade fire, walked in by using the drones, coupled with a feint up slope that was a step in the right direction. Pain and blood loss were making Chargon delirious. He was calling for his mother, sobbing, "Mommy, Mommy, come get me. I'm sorry, Mommy. I just want to go home. They don't tell you about stuff like that in video games and 3V action shows. They never talk about how agony and the nearness of death can turn a soldier back into the queuing that they had been not that long ago. How a commander listens to it with his blood turned to ice because the voice sounds so young, not that different from his own queuings at home. The guilt and self-loathing of watching a dying comrade you can do nothing for and wishing in your heart of hearts that they'd just die already and make an end to it. They should teach that in staff officer school. My guys had been doing some pop-up blind firing into the pass, just laying down some random bursts to make sure the humans stayed under cover. The humans, of course, had been shooting back. The firing wasn't heavy or constant, just spurts of it, with lulls every few seconds. It was in one of these lulls that a human started shouting at us. Hey, Spider Llamas, you listening? Spider Llama is a rather mild slur, a human nickname for Vanga, apparently based off some animals of theirs that we resemble. "We hear you, Skinny," I yelled back, returning the slur in kind as I signaled my troops to hold fire. "What do you want? Come out and get your guy. He's about done for." They were taunting us, damn them. "Go mate with your mother," I called. The human sounded exasperated. "Damn it, just come out and get him. We ain't going to shoot." Yeah, right. Chargon had curled up, trying to wrap around his mangled arm, still moaning, "Mommy, take me home. Mommy, please." There was a pause, and when the human yelled again, he sounded genuinely angry. "We'll hold fire, you 4-legged bastards. Just come get your guy. Either agree to a truce and come get him, or I swear to God I'll put a mercy round through his head myself. Don't let him suffer like this." It was tempting, but it would also be a pretty effective strategy to get some of my guys out in the open. I knew enough about humans to appreciate how devious they can be. "How do I know you won't just shoot our medic?" I called back. "Because I said we wouldn't. Rialto Army don't play that game." We went back and forth like this for a minute, but ended up agreeing to a 15-minute ceasefire. Neither side would shoot or maneuver, and the human squad leader I was talking to would come down into the pass personally, where he'd be exposed to our fire if his side proved false when our medic and a couple of troopers stepped out into the narrows, weapons slung. I went with them. Any unit commander who sends troopers into a danger that he isn't willing to face himself deserves to be shot in the face. As we broke cover, we saw that the human squad leader was already slide walking down the hill with that weird uneven gait bipteus on rough ground. He was in dust-colored armor, not too unlike our own, a Gauss carbine slung on his back, hands open and held out to his sides. We reached Charon at about the same time. Shan was still alive, his moans and sobs weaker but audible. It was a miracle he was even still conscious. Our medic immediately began slapping stick-tight compresses over the wounds, while the troopers set to work mixing up insta-blood injections. The human came over to stand beside me, showing no sign of fear. His armor's faceplate had retracted, and I was able to get a good look at him. He had a lean, brownish face, the fur on his chin and lip black, but streaked with gray. His eyes were bright and hard, but not without some feeling in them. "What's his name?" the human asked me. "Chargon. Trooper first class. Well, he is one brave son of a bitch, laying down fire on us like that. He's the only reason we didn't take down more of you guys." I know. I was watching our medic's expression as he started getting the insta-blood into Chargon, had a desperate look on his face, but not a hopeless one. That was something, at least. "I hope he makes it," the human said. I turned to look at the human again. Why, he shrugged. "Why not? Hands out of the fight anyway. No, I mean, why a truce at all? You had us pinned. You still do," he interrupted, smiling tightly. "So why stop the fight like this? Why not use him as bait to try to draw us out, or let us take the morale hit of either watching our comrade die or putting him out of his misery ourselves?" He shrugged again. "Either of those would be effective, I guess. Or maybe I just realized that a wounded soldier will tie up a lot more of your resources than a dead one, or a healthy one, for that matter," I grunted in affirmation. That made tactical sense. Assuming Chargon survived, I'd be down 4 rifles on the firing line rather than just 1, with the troopers it would take to see to him. Personally, though, the human went on, I like to think of it as paying it forward. "I let you save your guy this time. Maybe next time it'll be one of mine out there, hurt and scared and wanting to go home, and maybe you'll let us come out and save him." I thought about that for a moment as I watched the medic motion for the troopers to try and lift Charon. The look on his face, it might have been a little bit less desperate. "Maybe I will." I looked at the human again. He was holding out a hand to me. I grasped it with one of my own. "Maybe I will," I repeated. He gave my hand a brisk pump. "It's just a war, after all," he said. "No need to make it any uglier than it has to be." Right a few minutes later, we were shooting at each other again. Not with much effect, though, as we weren't about to expose ourselves to try and assault a position we lacked the strength to carry out, and the humans didn't care to leave such a perfect position. We eventually retreated and dug in on good ground a few kilometers downslope, leaving the pass to the humans. Chargon ended up surviving, even stayed in the landing infantry. Though by the time they got his new arm and leg fitted, and he was back in fighting shape, combat operations had been halted. We wound up signing a peace deal with Rialto that split the planet between us, for whatever that was worth. The borderline between the Rialto and Trinity sectors runs through that same pass in the hills, though I understand that the few human and Vanga settlers who live there now mostly ignore the border altogether. And as for humans, they're not my favorite people, I guess. Based on what I've seen, a lot of them seem to be bastards. But I don't hate them either. I mean, why would I? It's just life, after all. No need to make it any uglier than it has to be, right? If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. For every comment that says, we will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.